So, where were we? Oh, right, Uganda. On this day in Uganda, we were scheduled to dedicate two different wells in two different villages, but both had been built in memory of people who had passed. The first was going to be in Bumala, and the second was in Lukala village. I am most likely butchering that, but uh, close enough. And so we got on the road, and I went back to doing what I had been doing throughout Uganda, watching the country go by through the window. There were lumber yards and sawmills, except the trees were sometimes being moved by bicycle. There were men making iron doors and gates in open air workshops. There were salons and petrol or gas stations. Some of the towns that we passed through had dirt roads, packed clay dirt roads, while others had paved roads and sidewalks. There were unfinished houses, as well as finished houses, as well as homes that looked like they had just been abandoned in the middle of construction. There were boda-bodas and late model cars sharing the same roads. Uganda just didn't present itself as one neat thing that I could quickly understand and compartmentalize in my head. It could look busy, modern, and industrious, and then not very far away, people could still be living without safe drinking water. I just didn't understand. In Bumala, we would be walking to the original water source. And this was important because this was the first original source that our Ugandan guides and the mission organizers had deemed safe enough for us to walk to. Bumala was about an hour and a half maybe drive from where we were based. And so I just looked at Uganda go past and tried my best to understand what it was that I was seeing. Soon we would turn off of this paved road and we would be at the village of Bumala, where as soon as we stepped off the bus that was parked just off the road, we were greeted by these folks. The women and the children of Bumala were excited to see us and welcomed us in the way that I had grown familiar with the Ugandan welcome. The women and the children were lined up along this paved asphalt road that ran through the middle of the village. They were there to welcome us and to cheer and to celebrate our arrival. And it was this paved asphalt road that we would cross to get to that communal original water source. And we passed through what was obviously a communal living area on our way to that original water source. There were several houses grouped together. It was just a community. It was a neighborhood. Some of these were very well-built houses. Others, had the thatch roofs on them. Just beyond the communal living area is where the path began that would take us to that original water source. And we began to slowly navigate that path. We walked through tall grasses and along the narrow but well-worn path. At times, the path would open into cornfields or other crops, only to narrow again into a muddy, slippery trail. And so the navigation was slow. Further and further we walked. Someone joked about slipping on the path. Someone else mentioned cobras. And I, of course, asked, wait, are there cobras out here? But I was assured that the cobras would not be out. I guess they received the itinerary and knew we were coming. I don't know, but we were assured there would be no cobras out on this path that day. But we kept walking. And the only thing that I could think of is we were just carrying our water bottles, cameras. More importantly, we were there out of choice, not out of necessity. What would it be like to be a woman or a young girl who had to make this walk every day, maybe more than once a day, to go and retrieve water, to go down and to come back up? We walked for 11 minutes. I timed it. 11 minutes before we would arrive at the original water source. And when we got there, this is what we found. This is where the community got their water.
Source that this community and the surrounding has been depending on for their safe water source. Wow. You can imagine seeing the turbidity as far as you can see. As you can see, we have a lot of algae, and then also, as you can see on top, that is what we normally call the African fridge. This weed here is not supposed to be uprooted just because it makes water to be cold.
We were also welcomed by the village chairwoman.
Thank you so much for coming, but she's the chairperson of this village.
She explained to us the health outcomes, especially for the children, that would be improved by just having the borehole, just having that well. I think one of the things that surprised me was that this wasn't some water source that was used a long time ago and had been abandoned. This was the water source that people were using up until that day. It wasn't an example, it was the actual water source. That was hard. That was hard to accept. It was even hard to accept or to understand. The chairwoman explained that Lake Victoria, which I showed you in an earlier video, is one of the largest freshwater sources in Africa. And it was only 1 or 2 kilometers away from that village. But yet they didn't have fresh, clean water in that village. That was their water source. And so just being close to a freshwater source didn't mean necessarily that you had clean water available to you. Yeah, mind blown, for sure. On the walk back, I was behind this woman, and I recognized the car on her t-shirt. I would recognize the car on the back of that t-shirt anywhere. That was a Mustang. I am a Mustang girly. So I asked her about the t-shirt. I hadn't spoken to her before that moment, and I had seen that she and a few other folks were wearing these t-shirts, and I was curious. She let me know that the t-shirts that they were wearing were in honor of her son, and that we would be going to the next well, the second well for that day, was being dedicated in honor of her son, Curran. And Curran was 25 years old and had died the previous year in a tragic accident. But he was very well known for being a Mustang enthusiast and for doing modifications on Mustangs. And he had a Saline. And if you know cars, if you know Mustangs, you know that's a hot rod. She showed me a picture of her son, and he was very handsome. And yeah, I thanked her for sharing that story with me. And we kept walking. After seeing where people, mostly women and girls, have been getting their water, we were able to cross back over the road where the community was waiting to welcome us for the well dedication. And having seen where the original water source was, I had a better understanding of what this new borehole and what this new well would mean for the community. The celebration was no doubt lively. There were children, there was dancing, there was drumming. It was just beautiful. Just as beautiful were the flowers that decorated both the path and the well itself. And as the celebration continued outside, a group of us would move into this modest brick structure to begin Spa Day. Now, as an American woman of a certain age, I know a thing or two about spa days.
There were no soft, fluffy robes for this spa day, but the women seated in colorful plastic chairs were just as excited for their moment of pampering.
Most of the volunteers grabbed chairs for themselves and sat down and bent over and began to work on the women's feet. Now, as I've told you, yes, I'm on a missions trip, but I am not a missionary. I don't know a whole lot about the Bible. I really don't. The book is rather large. I've never read it from cover to cover. But I know some of the stories in there. I know that there's a story where Jesus is washing people's feet. Like that's a big deal, right? And I remember the story, but I don't remember Jesus grabbing a chair. So while the other folks grabbed chairs, I gathered my skirt of my dress around me, and I kneeled on the concrete floor, and I got to work. All the volunteers got to work. Everyone was very busy. There was a lot of chatter in the building. It was good. As I'm doing the feet of the woman that I'm kneeling in front of, I realized that there's a woman beside her, and she's just sitting. She's got a smile on her face, and she's looking around at the other women who were being attended to. And I also looked around to see if anyone was coming to serve her. And no one was coming. There wasn't another volunteer available. And so I looked up at my woman, and I said, I tried to motion, is it okay? Can I stop and then go to her? And the woman who I was working on, she was an older woman. She nodded. She was, oh. And so I went and I washed the feet of the woman who was seated beside her. And I went back and forth between the two. Wash one, wash the other, lotion over here, massage here. You get the idea. I just went back and forth between the two.
The other volunteers finished well before I did, obviously. My friend came around and he commented that I was meticulous in my work. I didn't particularly think so. I just thought that these women deserved the best that I had to offer that day. Later, when it was time to take pictures, I realized they were mother and daughter.
Seeing that they were mother and daughter having a spa day reminded me of my own mother, who I had just lost. And I remembered how proud I was when I got to take her to have a mani-pedi for the first time. I don't know that mother and daughter there in that village in Uganda will remember their spa day, but I will remember it.
With the well dedicated and the spa day complete there in Bumala, we boarded the buses and headed toward our second well dedication in Lulaka village. That was the one that had been built in memory of Karan Lara, the young man who died in the tragic accident the previous year. You remember, I talked to his mom earlier. His parents had traveled from California to Uganda to dedicate this well in his name. That was the plan anyway. But as we were driving towards the village, the sky turned black. Not gray, but black. The rain began coming down so hard that for a while, there was a real question about whether we would be able to reach Lulaka village. People began discussing whether the dedication would have to be canceled. Now, I had mostly stayed quiet throughout this trip, but not this time. His parents had traveled from California to Uganda. They had come all the way to see the well and to meet the community and hear their son's name spoken here. As far as I was concerned, this just had to happen.
The mission organizers and the Ugandan team sent bodas. Those are those small, like motorcycle scooters. They sent those ahead of the buses to see just how bad the roads were. In Uganda, when it rains, it pours. And as you've seen, some of these roads that we're on are just red clay dirt. And so there was a question about whether or not the roads would be passable for the bus. And so at one point we pulled over to the side of the road, and the bodas have gone on ahead of us, and we wait 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Almost an hour passes before we get the call that the roads are clear and we should come on.
know this for certain, but I firmly believe that the entire village came out to celebrate the life of Curran Lara and to thank his parents. There were so many people there, so many children. They lost their son, and this village is receiving water. Curran's name is here now in Lulaka village, and his parents were here to see what had been created in his memory. Surrounded by children who never knew their son, Curran's parents put their hands on the pump, and then the water came, clean water from a well bearing their son's name. Water that meant these kids had a shot at a longer life, something their own son had not. A volunteer caught the water in his hands and threw it over the children. They laughed, they screamed, and they reached up for more.